Okay, so I will walk you through a little bit what happened in Sony Mobile. As soon as I can get this one to working.
Okay. Should do it like that.
Thanks. Yeah, there we have it. This is what happened to us. And I think many people here are from Scania. You will have similar kind of experience that we have, so just take notice. We were very happy having our own operating system called OSA. Then boom, iPhone and Android was released 2007-8. I was then doing a mid-range plan. I was specifically looking to open source, and I said it's going to be bad. We're going to probably have to look into open source within 3 to 4 years. I was completely wrong. It took only 14 months from that I released that report that we shut down OSA and started to switch over to operating systems that are based on open source. So we adopted it in 2009. I was then the open source general or the open source officer responsible for introducing open source in Sony Mobile. From 2010, we used open source operating systems, and from 2011 it's only Android. This is the background. So we have to shift. About 3,500 software engineers has to learn and adapt open source. So I needed something to explain what we needed to do. And I started to understand what is really open source. It's about code and licenses, but it's not only about code and licenses. It's something also about development culture. It's also a market disruptor. Look what Google did with Android. And in the end, it's actually all those three things that will affect your core business. So I have to have an open source maturity model explaining to the management what we needed to do of kind of journey. We started from 1, just doing it without knowing what we were doing. Level 2, we started to have processes, guidelines, directives, and training, and starting to do the open source thing. Level 3, we're starting to be very good in contributing. And we are today, I would say, in level 4, we're starting to create ecosystems. And we'll hopefully end up in level 5, which is the Nirvana state, Google state, if you want to. They can change markets with open source. Then I entered into an international or European research project called Scalaria. And we're looking into more in detail what is open source, what we need to do in open source in terms of governance and also things. We have a very holistic viewpoint, looking both on organization, processes, and products, what impact it will be when you have drivers applying to this, and what changes go for scaling scenarios, as we say. We're going from hardware to software, software becomes the primary concern. Or you have working with locally, you have to work in a global environment. Or if you have something that's proprietary and goes to open source. So I had an open source maturity model, and we created what we call scaling management framework canvases. Canvases is just a graphical representation on the things you need to do in order to do a maturity travel. And we're going to look specifically into this one. This is going from knowing nothing on the left side, and then you do the transition to the right side, and you're doing a lot of these yellow process nodes, which is we call patterns. Patterns are like software patterns, but we could call it really business patterns. Things you need to do in your product, in your processes, or your organization in order to achieve certain abilities that is being mature in open source. If you're doing all this, I promise you will be good in extracting value to your products. The other canvases you saw that is the next step, going from that you're good in open source, but now you're going to build ecosystems and disrupt the market. But this is not the theme of today. Today we're going to work on something that is red up there. You see that? That is called Shun, the use but not contribute trap. And this is an anti-pattern. Don't do that. So, starting here, now comes the real lecture. There are basically three main objectives for doing contributions. The obvious first one is that you reduce all the maintenance work by contributing upstream, and then in the next version you contributed error fixes, comes back now fixed. So you don't need to maintain that. So you get rid of all these patches and don't build up a patch mounting. That's of course a very good objective for making contributions. But that's very cost oriented. That's not really exciting. What you really should do is getting into our open source community and start to collaborate, because then you're starting to understand what is the community heading. And if you do that, if you understand that and participate in the work in the community, you can adjust your requirements, because you can't say to our community that take that requirement because it's so important for our customer. That doesn't work at all. In the end, you want to be the committer or the maintainer of a community if it's really important the work the community is doing. And in that way you can control the community. That is saying that you work together with others, but you have a way of saying on the which direction you want the community to go. There's no other way. So, look into these three things. What is most important when coming to contributing for reducing the maintenance cost? Well, you should look out for the patch mounting. The patch mounting is when you, instead of contributing, saying, it's just a patch, we just put it in there. I don't bother with contributing back. Or even worse, management is saying that you're only allowed to use it. You're not allowed to contribute, because then a valuable IP could leave the company. Don't listen to your managers if they start saying that. They're completely wrong. Because what is happening then is that in the end, that patch mounting, and I'm telling you from our own experiences, I have teams that have entered the patch mounting when it exploded. And this is happening when the time they need to apply all the patches for a new version is greater than the time of development. It eats up all the development time, so they don't have any time for developing at all. And this is really dangerous and really, really costly. So, please contribute. The second thing is that you can't command a community from the outside. That meaning that if you have some requirements coming from your customers, it doesn't work to go to community and say, well, we really need this feature, but it has to be released within 2 months. And the community will say, mo ho 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 ho. Who are you? Oh, we are Sony, you know, very big Japanese company. They don't care. Communities are driven by their own itch. If you have an itch, bring it to the community, develop it there, contribute, participate. That's the only way you can influence a community, is by your own participation. So you have to contribute in order to maintain your requirements. Or you really have to have a thorough look to requirements and say, maybe we shouldn't do that. And then in the end is that if something is really good out there, you want to be part of the innovation that's happening in an open source community. Be part of that community all the way. Let the brightest and best of your engineers participate in the community. Let them climb the meritocracy ladder and become maintainers and committers. And in that way they have a say in the community. And then you will have a thankful community that helps you to work with your business agenda. So, I promise you 3 things. You can improve the cost of maintenance. You can have a better requirement management. And you have a way of doing real innovation as long as you just contribute. So please contribute. Shun the use but not contribute trap. Thank you.
Thank you.